My title is career practitioner. So it's kind of like a guidance counselor. I have been working with Edmonton Public School Board for 10 years in March, working with older high school students. So they're fourth and fifth year, but like at that stage where they're ready to take the next step into post-secondary or their career planning, like whether that's apprenticeship, college, or some kind of training for post-sec. So I've been doing that for like, yeah, almost 10 years. And then before that, I worked for college in recruitment and advising as well. And I taught adult ed. I taught English in the evenings for almost 10 years as well. So I've kind of been working in adult ed advising for my whole career.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been involved with students for a lot of your career.
Yes. And I think the same, like the demographic of this project, like they've all been adults. So I graduated in 2009 with my Bachelor of Education degree in secondary ed. And I continued to only work with adults. Like I never worked with junior high or even a local community school. It was all adult ed. So, and all like, I think that's what makes this like project a good fit because that's all I've been doing is like that, like grade 12 or 30 level, like next step is university, not like the younger kids. So yeah, it's been really good.
And obviously you've enjoyed it so far, right?
Yeah, I really like it. I think adult ed is like where my heart lies. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting topic to think about, like what next step I might do, because this is sort of like connected to the conversation, like with young people trying to figure out what their first step is with university or college or what they want to do. And like the truth is like we're always evolving, right? Like what you do or what career you set out to do, you likely are going to evolve, grow. We don't stay in the same jobs like our parents or, the older generations. We kind of like to try new things. And I've always thought I might go back to school, but I don't know for sure if I will or not.
Did you get like your master's?
Yeah. And for a long time, I wanted to get into like more personal counseling because my role at the high school that I work at is like post-secondary advising, financial aid. I work with our LGBTQ population, but then as soon as it kind of moves into like, anxiety or depression or things like that, then I have to refer them. So I always was wondering if maybe I'd like to take on that as well. But yeah, I need to go back to school and get my master's degree. So I don't know yet. We'll see.
Well, I think you'll do well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like you just have to take a step, right? Which is like what these kids have to do. Like the youth that we're referring to and talking to is just taking the first step, right? So
yeah. I've talked to a couple of students about counselors at their school, like guidance counselors, obviously. And their number one thing that I keep running into is how much older these counselors are than them, right? Right. So they'll be coming out of high school or they'll be in high school and they'll have a counselor that's maybe 60 years old or 50 something years old. And they feel like they can't really relate to them. Right. So it's good to have a young person in that role, kind of guiding them along where they feel comfortable enough to tell them any kind of situation or whatever situation they're going through and how to seek guidance, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that, but that does make sense. Like that you could feel like that sense of relatability. And even with me kind of being in the same shoes in a sense, like considering going back to school and trying to compare different programs or the cost, figuring out how I would pay for it, what type of like, career options would come out of a graduate degree, I guess is like kind of similar to what students are trying to figure out in high school, right?
Absolutely. And we're happy to have you on board because it seems like you have a wealth of knowledge to share with us too, right? And
Thank you.
For sure.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I'm really excited to be here.
That's good.
Okay, yeah. So what do we do? What do we do next? So let's say we've applied, we're arranging our tuition, whether we're working part-time and saving or applying for loans, scholarships, bursaries, all of that. But now what do you do while you're waiting, right? Like, because it's, so you might have applied in October, but you have until the following, like you have 11 months until you actually start school. So this is where that online portal is really important. And I have seen this so many times where students become overwhelmed, which is absolutely normal, but to the point that they don't check it. And it's either like they maybe sometimes they feel anxious and don't know how to navigate it, so they just avoid it. And I would really, really, really encourage students to seek support if you need, but to go online anyways, even though it's a little bit scary, go on to the portal. Because what ends up happening is that if they miss a deadline, if they miss an offer, if they miss a tuition deposit, their application will be canceled and all of this hard work that we've put in will be for nothing. So students, once they've applied, it's not like, okay, done, like let me go enjoy the rest of my grade 12 year or whatever. They need to be checking their portal often. Like I would say weekly. Just make it a habit. You just check all the time. Because as I mentioned before, there could be to-do items that you need to submit. If you did miss something in your application, they'll tell you there. So they'll say, oh, we have all of your requirements, but we're missing your biology. We're missing your math. So update us with that, right? So you have the opportunity to correct mistakes if you did make any. And they might offer you a spot. They might say, yes, we want to offer you a seat in Bachelor of Science starting in fall 2023. So when they do that, there will be an action for you to take as a student. For students, they will need to accept the offer and pay a tuition deposit, which is usually around maybe $400 or $500, maybe $600, which goes towards their tuition for when they start school and is non-refundable. But if they miss it, if they miss the deadline, then their application can be canceled. So it's really, really, really important to check and monitor it frequently. There will also be posted like deadlines for when students have to pay their tuition. There will be an enrollment date that's posted so students know when they can actually start picking their classes, which is so exciting. Like we're finally getting to the good part. So it's just really important that students check that portal on a frequent basis. And this would be another time, absolutely reach out to an advisor if you have one at your high school, or absolutely check on the university website, because likely they have some kind of orientation or workshop or some guidance for your next steps of like picking classes and all that kind of thing.
Now, question on that. In terms of the tuition, are there programs or plans in place for students that can't afford it right away? They want to go to school, they can get the money, but they don't have the lump sum.
Good question. I would say based on a kind of case by case basis and based on different schools would be different. I think getting something like an extension on the due date might be possible if they ask ahead of time. I think in general, you have to pay pretty quickly, but I would think there'd be like some, like if you ask in writing or ask, go to the registrar's office and submit a form, I would think there'd be a little bit of flexibility, but not as much as you'd think, I think. Like, I think they'll have to pay it sooner than later, but maybe like a week or a month extension might be possible.
Okay. So if you're going to school, have the money ready.
Yeah. But it's certainly better to ask than to just ignore it, right? Like, so if you know, I am going to be getting this money, I don't have it yet. It's better to go and either fill out a form or see them in person or send an email to request an extension than to just like ignore it.
Or assume that they're going to give it to you because you're in need.
Yes, exactly. So we kind of talked about this accept or decline your offer. And I wanted to kind of touch on this because this is a really challenging time for students in some ways, because if we have talked about how it's advisable to apply to more than one school and more than one program, right? Mm-hmm. So if a student is offered a spot in a program, and let's say it's not their first choice, that can be a little bit stressful because they're still hoping to hear from their first choice. Maybe they're hoping, well, yeah, obviously they're hoping for their first choice, But a decision has to be made. And often the time that they give students is not very long. Sometimes it's even as short as 3 weeks to make that decision. So, and when I talk to students who are facing this, it's really challenging because there's not really anything you can do. You have to make a decision, and it's not right or wrong, whatever the student decides. So you have to either accept it or decline it. But if you decline it, if you end up not getting your first choice, then now you have no choices, right? If you accept, you have to pay a tuition deposit that holds your spot. That deposit is non-refundable. So if you accept and you take that tuition deposit, or you pay that tuition deposit, and then later you get an offer from your first choice, unless it's from the same university, let's say it's a different university, you don't get that money back. And that's crappy for students. But that's a reality of this sort of game, or this like juggling thing. So that's the one thing that's kind of crappy, because you kind of have to take a risk or not.
Yeah.
And that nobody can make that decision for the student, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it sucks. It does suck because you want your first choice, but there's a second choice that's available to you right away.
Yeah.
It's a gamble. I mean,
It's a gamble. Exactly. Yeah. And this might be a good time to reach out to your high school advisor as well, and see if they can help you kind of look at maybe how likely is it that they get accepted. Like if your first choice, the average range is in the high 80s, low 90s, and you're sitting at 70, your advisor is probably going to say to accept the offer, right? Like it doesn't feel very realistic that you'll get that first choice. Whereas, if you're sitting at that really competitive range and you feel really confident, then that you could. But like talking it over with an advisor, a loved one, a family member might be helpful. And if you don't care about the $400, then you don't care about the $400, I guess.
I mean, to secure your position or place, I think it'd be worth it to just hold this space. If you do eventually get accepted into your number one program, looking at the long haul of things and understanding, hey, you know what, this is what I wanted, $400, I paid it, okay, cool, but
yeah,
I got what I wanted.
Yeah, I agree. When I applied to university, I only applied to one program. I don't know what I was thinking, but I got in, luckily.
Right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just would do it the same now. But yeah, so now if you like at this point in your journey as you're waiting for university, it's usually time starting somewhere, I would say March, April, May would be enrollment starts. So students can start looking at like what classes they want to take. And again, I would highly, highly recommend students attend like enrollment workshops. They're usually available. See an advisor. Like I do this with students at my high school all the time. Like look at, okay, what is the program of study? What is the calendar? How many courses do you want to take? Do you have to pick a major? Do you know what your major is? Do you want to choose a minor? Like those types of questions, and then show them how to navigate the like how to pick the classes. And usually it's through that online portal that we were talking about before.
Sorry. Before you continue, do you want to expound a little bit more on majors and minors?
Sure, yeah. So in a regular degree, not all degrees are going to have this, but in a like let's say a Bachelor of Commerce degree where you're studying business, and there's in that kind of in that degree, there's still so many different types of things you can study, right? International business, finance, accounting, human resources, management, things like that. So students can choose a major, which is like the bulk of difficult courses that you're going to take when you're getting into your third and fourth years will be kind of around that subject matter. So you kind of become a little bit of an expert in that area. So if you choose finance, you take the most amount of courses in finance. You're still going to take your breadth requirements, which is sort of like a range of classes, maybe in science, out of faculty humanities, You're still going to have electives that are within your business options, and you're still going to have just random option courses. Like maybe you want to take a film studies course, or maybe a language course, or whatever. So your degree is going to be comprised of all of those different types of classes, but your major is kind of what you become the most expert in. And it doesn't mean, like that's the one thing you're going to do for your whole life, but I think it is important that you enjoy it, you're curious about it, you're passionate about it, hopefully, because you're going to study it a lot. And then many schools have options around like double majoring or minoring in an out of faculty program. So like, for example, maybe you're interested in both commerce, like as I mentioned, and history or psychology or sociology or anthropology. So you could major in something in your business degree, but then minor in an out of faculty minor. So lots of schools have like tons of really flexible kind of build it your own degree options, which is so exciting for young people to have that flexibility. Your minor would be like the subject you study. It's like if your major is like the one you study the most, your minor would be the one you study a little bit less, but still more than your other subjects.
So does any program have, so let's say I want to do accounting. Can I have a major in accounting and then out of faculty in like a kinesiology? Like how does that work?
It's possible, and it would vary by institution. So it would just totally depend on the school. Like you can find most of this, I would say, on the school's website when you're looking at whichever program. So you mentioned accounting. So if you're in the business, when you're looking at majors and minors, it should give you the list of options for minoring. The university calendar would also list this. So the calendar is kind of like the guidebook for like what you need to graduate your university degree. So it tells you all the courses that you have to take, all your option courses you can take, and it would give you the options for your minors and majors. So some will just not be possible and some might be possible. And it just totally depends on the school and the way they've structured their programs. So like you had mentioned kinesiology, it's possible. I don't think it here, I've seen that. I haven't seen that, but it's possible.
So you can kind of major like within a wide variety. So
Yeah.
business and then athletics or sports.
Yeah. And of course, it's going to kind of depend on the type of degree that you want to take and that you are taking, right? So like we've like there's so many degree options, right? So, but if you're like, okay, for example, engineering is really, really, really rigorous and it's not flexible. So likely with engineering, you're not going to be able to do a flexible degree and do an out of faculty minor. Like you're just going to be taking your prescribed courses, which are really competitive, and then apply to get into your area of like civil, mechanical, electrical, like whatever area of engineering you want to do, which is also competitive usually. So it's more, I would say, like it depends on the type of degree. Like I did education and it was not possible to do an out of faculty minor for me, but like there's like there's just so many new flexible options like arts, design. I think business is flexible. Even sciences has a lot of flexibility more and more. I think because they're realizing that students want a well-rounded education and that there's so many skill sets that you can gain from being able to like bridge across like different subject areas, I think, and like kind of like being curious about what you're, like what makes you, like if you're a science person, but if you can also have like an artistic side, right? Or high communications or things like that. I think they're realizing that that's kind of important. But some degrees just won't offer that, like nursing, probably not. Engineering, probably not.
So I guess the more rigorous the program, the less flexibility, right?
I would say, yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, I'm gonna put you in a role.
Okay.
You got accepted into university of your choice, your program of your choice. First year, how do you structure your semester? What do you think is the most important thing in order to structure your semester so you can have smooth sailing?
That's such a good question. Okay, for me, I would say if I'm in a program that allows some flexibility, I would say I would personally, I would say why, like, don't take 5. I would say take 4, take 3 or 4, and just to get your feet wet and just see what it's like. And I would say to choose, because you're going to have some options of what to choose. I would say at least pick one that you actually are really interested in, because some you're going to have to take, right? So some you're going to be required to take, but try to take at least one that you're genuinely excited about, and think of and reflect on yourself as a student. Like if you can, you know yourself best, is what I say to my students usually. Do you have capacity to be in 5 classes? That's 5 textbooks, 5 midterms, 5 final exams. That's a lot for a lot of students. Like in my local, like in my high school, students were only taking 2 classes at once. So that's a lot. If your program is really competitive, like, are you going to be able to maintain that course load and be like successful and be competitive, right? I think a lot of the answer to your question depends on what the person is in. Like I had mentioned, the rigorous schedule for engineering. So there's just not an option. It's kind of like do or die. In other examples of that would be like if a student is trying to get into pharmacy, for example, you have to take, they want to see that students can be competitive while maintaining a high course load. So it's not flexible. It's not, you just must take that many and do really well in order to succeed in some of these competitive programs. So I guess it just really depends on what program the student's in. I was in a flexible program, so I was flexible. Like I just did not want to be in a rigorous program. That's not my nature. That's not who I am as a person, but that's what, like, my university experience like reflects very much like who I am as a person, like really compassionate. Let's slow it down. There's no rush. But if you're the type of person who's like, no, I want to be an engineer and I'm competitive and I got in, then you have to maintain that schedule that they've set out for you. And there's just no room from my experience anyways.
Okay. I guess we touched on how to go about choosing classes, or do you want to touch a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I clicked on this one. It's not the best example, but it is an example. So if I'm looking at the University of Manitoba, and all the universities and colleges will have this, but it's going to look different on each website, right? So I'm on their site. I went into academics, and now you'll see, like, of course, there's tons of information. So I just clicked on education so a student can see. So a program of study is what they're kind of looking for. So something either that says calendar or program of study, because that's going to outline the courses that the student has to take in order to graduate with that degree. So we're clicking on program of study, and then you can see they offer a number of different degrees, but we're going into the Bachelor of Education. So I'm clicking on that. And then it's going to kind of go through like what type of education is covered. And so here it says, and this is, so I'm kind of going fast because I know what I'm looking for, right? But if a student is going through, it's going to take, you're going to have to kind of go slow and read through it, right, in order not to miss anything. But I kind of know what I'm looking for. But here, it says like a Bachelor of Education is a 2-year program that follows completion of a bachelor's degree. And this is a perfect example of how education is different in each province. Because here in Alberta and in other provinces, it's a 4-year degree. You can do it in 4 years. So that's just an example of how, like, if I tried to take my 4-year degree and go there, I'd have to do more education. This is just a good example to see that it totally depends. So if I click on ensure my first university degree includes the required courses. So they include a worksheet you can click on so you can keep track and make sure, okay, am I getting my major courses? Am I getting my minor courses? And then we can look at the education section of the first year planning guide. So that's another, so those kind of keywords, planning guide, tip sheet, program of study, calendar, those are kind of our words that we're looking for. And then this kind of will give you a planning guide so you can know which classes you need to take. So if I click on this, I think this is a large document. It's 200 pages, but you're going to skip to the education page. Like you can see, it just goes through tons of information. So students can go through and read that, but they're going to find the education page, and then that will tell them what courses they have to take, and then it'll help them. Then they'll be in their online portal and they'll add those courses to their schedule. But this is why I like strongly, because like this is overwhelming. Like this is 200 pages. Like, so this is why I would highly recommend students go to a enrollment workshop or book an appointment with an advisor. Like 100%, I would recommend that because it's overwhelming, right? But like this is like just the first page, so we don't have to keep going to education. So Bachelor of Science majoring in agribusiness, it tells you, okay, you have to have AB is 1,000, agriculture 1,600. I can choose between biology 1,000 and whatever 1020, right? So this is what students are going to look at with like choosing their courses. There's tips, all of that. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. It does. Very informative, actually.
It's overwhelming, for sure, which is why I like just highly recommend that they see their advisor, just so they don't have to feel like they're alone. You know, like it's overwhelming for everyone. Everyone feels confused or anxious. Like it's so normal, but like when you think you're the only one, I think it makes it harder. So seeking support, so you know what you're feeling and experiencing is totally normal. Just not having to do it alone, like, because you don't have to do it alone, is what I would say to students. Like there's so much help and support out there.
Question on that. The student's overwhelmed, wants more information on a specific university, for instance.
Mhm.
They pick up the phone and they call. Who are they looking for? What department are they looking for?
Good question. I would maybe start with I would think like recruitment or student advisor. Like advisor is usually a good word. Often recruiters can direct you to advisors because they're the link between the university and the high schools. And if even calling feels overwhelming, like if I'm talking to a student who's in high school, I would say go to your student services first, because they might have, like I have contacts at universities in my city that I can help students link up with. So that I would say first start with your high school advisor. And if you're not sure where that is, like go to your student services, go to your principal's office, somebody there should be able to help you. And then if not, then yes, pick up the phone or even go on their website and look for student advisor, student services, student support, those types of words. And they should for sure be able to link you. It's because they're used to getting phone calls like this, right? Like to that student, that's the first time they're making that phone call, but the school, like these universities are used to getting inquiries and questions. So they're used to it. They'll be able to transfer students or give them more information.
Or maybe even with the rise of social media, following them on social media.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great idea. Absolutely recommend that. Yeah. And then that would also like they'll link their events. They'll be right because they want to promote it to all the young people who are interested. Yeah, that's a great idea. Absolutely.